Welcome to Inside the Mind, a podcast hosted by myself, Jennifer Forster, and my beautiful co-host, Allie May. We're excited to be here, diving into edgy, raw, and relatable conversations woven together with mind-blowing questions that will shake up your model of the world, expand your thinking, unravel your beliefs, tease apart your patterns, and walk you to the very edges of everything you've ever believed about yourself.
As NLP trainers, coaches, entrepreneurs, we'll be traversing the topics of business, relationships, money, family, spirituality, leadership, and personal growth, all through the discerning lens of NLP, ancient teachings, and a healthy sprinkling of womanly wisdom. One thing we believe to be true is that if we want a different outcome, we must be willing to ask a different question. And the answers to those questions are always inside the mind.
Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to Inside the Mind, the podcast with myself, Jen, and the beautiful Allie May sitting here beside me. We are really excited to take you on a journey in this podcast. And so what we've decided to do in these first 3 episodes is, if you are only to listen to the first 3 episodes, we want to give you 3 very, very powerful tools to have you become really empowered in your life. They are the fundamentals of the work we teach, the way we live, and pretty much what we filter everything through when we're unpacking our own stuff. So we wanted to share them with you, and rather than give it to you all in one big powerful punch, we've broken it into 3 episodes. So we're going to start right here. The very first theme, principle, fundamental to living as an empowered human being is cause and effect.
One of my favorites.
So let's start with a few questions. Have you ever been in a challenging situation, or have you ever had something happen where it just felt like it wasn't fair, or it wasn't your fault, or why did this have to happen, or why couldn't this have been a different way? If you've ever found yourself asking those questions, and if you're a human being with a heartbeat, you probably have at some point. So cause and effect, it's as simple as we either have reasons for why we don't have something, or we have the results for the thing we do want. Allie.
Yeah, and I'm not one to beat around the bush, so I would say effect, a simpler way to explore or to understand effect, is being in a victim space. And it's so easy for us as human beings to not even be aware of us being in a victim space. And the victim space is putting blame external to ourselves. It's blaming everybody else and everything else around us for the reason that we haven't got what we want in life. And cause is taking full ownership for everything, for every experience, for playing a role in every experience. That can get quite edgy. We'll keep it to a few simple areas to start with. For me, cause and effect is one of the biggest NLP teachings that I live my life by. Same with Jen. And Jen and I, we call each other a lot on things, and we have many conversations, deep diving into the mind and our own behavior. And one thing that I love very much about us, Jen, is that we are so willing to look at where we are being in effect and to really clean that up. So we had a great experience when Jen came and did her practitioner training with me. That was very interesting.
It really was very interesting. And so I want to start the story this way. So on day 1 of my practitioner training, I knew that I had found a body of work that somehow intuitively every cell in my body recognized. So I was pretty excited on day 1 of my prac training, and I made this big declaration. I sat there and I said, I'm going to do my master prac, and I'm going to assist you, Allie, at your next training, and I'm going to become a trainer of of this work. I'm going all the way, baby, because it made such sense to me. So this was on day one.
And you did all of that.
I did do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I want to share a story that will illustrate cause and effect, I think really well for our listeners. So I've made this big declaration. I'm feeling pretty good, right? If you've ever made a big declaration or you've become really aware of a vision that you have for yourself or a really exciting idea, and then comes the piece where everything that is going to check in on you to make sure that you're absolutely all in on this is going to present itself to you. So the very next thing we did was an exercise.
I just want to share.
Yes, please do.
I just want to share on this too. And for those of you that are listening and not watching this on YouTube, I have just been laughing as Jen has been speaking, the grin on my face, just recalling this experience. So I was sitting at the front of the room and Jen was directly in front of me.
Directly.
Mm-hmm. Keep going, Jen.
So it began with the first exercise. There are a lot of exercises and processes that we learn and participate in and practice and experience during the training. But this was the very, very first one. And I can't quite even remember what it was, but it was an exercise in why are you here and what is the outcome that you want to get from this training. So it was looking into the future. And the very first experience that I had in my body was this sensation of discomfort and anxiety and, I don't want to look into the future. What? No, if I look into the future, then I'm going to have to commit to something. And if I commit to something, then I'm going to have to fulfill on it. And then what if I don't fulfill on it? And then I'm going to be a failure. And oh my God, this exercise is shit and I don't want to do it. So all that happened in my mind in a microsecond, just seconds after Allie said, we're going to do an exercise.
And I'm really good at reading a room.
Yeah.
And my sensory acuity, that's something that we talk a lot about in NLP. My sensory acuity is on point to the depth that you don't even have to be in my vision for me to be able to see what's going on for you. So I got this download. It was like I could see inside Jen's mind while this split second was happening. And again, she's sitting across from me. I'm sitting across from her. And what happened next, Jen?
So what happened next? So I'm thinking, nobody can tell what's going on for me. On the outside, I think I'm being this, and I guess I was to everyone else in the room, super composed. I've just made this big declaration, that I'm going to have this be my way of life. And now I'm having this internal meltdown at the prospect of doing an exercise. Allie's sensory acuity was absolutely on point. So the next thing that happened, she looked at me directly and she said, is there something coming up for you, Jen? And I was there to play full out. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here because I was absolutely there to play this training full out. So I said, yeah, there's something coming up for me. And she goes, cool, what is it? I said, I don't want to do this exercise. And she goes, well, that's an interesting story that you've got going on there. And I could feel, if you've ever experienced this, you will know what I'm talking about. I felt like I was a deer in headlights. I felt like everyone else was staring at me. I felt like, Allie was just holding me in her gaze. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. I wanted anything other than to be sitting in that room having that conversation. So if you can relate to that, you're going to enjoy the rest of the story. So she said, cool, that's a really great story. How long do you want to keep that for? How much longer do you want to keep that story that exercises are hard? And I went, I'm a little bit obstinate and pig-headed and can be a little bit stubborn when I'm unraveling my stuff. And so I looked at her in my stubbornness and I said, let me just rephrase, just add a piece in there. She asked me two things. How long did I want to keep that story? How much longer did I want to keep that story for? And would I be willing to give it up? So me and my pig-headedness just said, no, I'm not willing to give it up. I'm not ready yet to give this story up, that doing exercises is hard. And she goes, cool, and then gets on with the training. And I'm sitting there like, what? Wait, what? She's now talking to the person sitting next to me and getting their piece and whatever. And I'm sitting there in my story, in my shit.
In your effect.
In my effect. Let's just get it out on the table here. Sitting in my shit, sitting in my story, sitting in full effect.
Victim, poor me.
This is shit. This isn't how this is meant to be. And what's going on in my head is, Allie, are you really? This is happening in my head. You're just going to leave me with this? Aren't you supposed to come back and no, you've got to help me with this. Isn't it your job to help me with this? I've got a problem here. Why aren't you helping me? That's what was going on in my head. Meanwhile, the training's still going on. And so after about 5-ish minutes, so we've got Allie's gone to the next person, and I'm still sitting in full effect. And in the end, I put up my hand and said, Allie, I'm not okay here. And she comes back to me and she says, what's going on? And I said, I'm ready to give up this story. This is shit. I don't like it. I don't like what's happening here. She goes, cool. If you're ready to give up the story that doing exercises is hard, effect, also a limiting belief, but we'll cover that later, full effect. She said, how would you like it to be instead? And I said, I would like exercises to be really easy and effortless. And she goes, cool. Do you choose your new story? Is that a story you'd like to choose? And I went, yeah, I would. And I shit you not. When it came to doing the exercises, there were a couple of other people still to speak. When we had our, 5 or 6, 7 minutes to do the exercise, I literally put my head down and I wrote it was exactly as I decided it to be, full course. How did I want it to be? I wanted it to be easy and effortless. Cool. Now I get to take the action of what that new story would look like. Full cause, full ownership. And there's a couple of key pieces in this as well. So cause and effect, and this was a really big learning for me, and I want to share it with you guys. So cause and effect isn't about the right choice or the wrong choice. It's not about the good decision or the bad decision or the left or the right. Cause is just simply being in full ownership of the decision or the choice that you're making.
And this is one of my favoriteest things. And this is something I'm such an advocate for and that I teach on, and that I work with any one-on-one clients, any of my students. This is a really big one for me.
Yeah.
You get to choose. If you want to be, like if Jen wanted to be in that space and stay in that space, for me, what I am an advocate for is, well, fucking own it. If you want to hold a story and keep a story and you're not ready to let go of identity, you're not ready to let go of victim, you're not ready to let go of being in effect, you're not ready to let go of a story, you're not ready to let go of whatever it is, just fucking own that. Because the resistance in not owning that is what causes the problem.
Yeah.
And when we're able to go, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to choose to sit in this for a little bit longer. I'm going to choose to hold the story of I can't do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to choose that for a couple more days. And I'm going to just play into that and buy into my own story and be okay with that. Cause and effect is, it doesn't have to go one way or the other there. It's just that total ownership that I'm playing my part here. I'm choosing this, whether it's something I want or something I don't want.
Exactly. And so just to backtrack into those moments when I'm sitting there, knowing that out of my own mouth, I have said, no, I'm not willing or ready to give up this story. That was I've just done a mind-blowing gesture here. That was the moment for me, because in those following 10 minutes where the training just continued on, I realized that nobody was doing anything to me. I was actually choosing the story that doing exercises was hard. And now I knew that. Now I knew that this shitty story that had occupied a big portion of my life, I was choosing it. And once that reality sunk in for me, it became even more uncomfortable than the story itself, because I realized, wait, I'm choosing this? Why would I choose to keep a story that is so ineffective, that's not working for me? Why would I consciously do that? And so now, with full awareness that I had said that I'm going to keep this story, I had space to make a different decision. And that's powerful.
So powerful. And again, you make the decision, I'm going to stay in it, or not. And the reason that I said to Jen, cool, and kept going was that I don't buy into story, and neither does Jen now. We all can have stories, but the story's not going to get us to where we want to go. The story's not going to support us with what it is that we truly, truly desire. For me, not a fan. Not a fan of stories. Not a very high tolerance level there for stories. And full respect that we all have an experience in life that we identify with, or multiple experiences that we identify with, and then the stories are created from that. And what I love about our work, Jen, is that we get to see through the working of the mind, inside the mind, we truly get to see how we do this. We get to see how we play it out. And in NLP, it's about how do we do something, not necessarily why we do something. And that's why we're not big on story, because it's not the why that's going to support the change. It's how does your brain do what it does? How have you taken in, how have you created a meaning? Like for Jen, and we could take this, for a lot longer around this and go into this next topic, but we'll cover this off in another one of our podcast episodes. Underneath that for Jen, there was childhood trauma. There was specific experiences from when Jen was at home as a child and when she was at school. And so we were able to, with timeline therapy, oh gosh, bees freaking knees of everything. And we will be touching on timeline therapy as well in our in future episodes. Through timeline therapy, Jen was able to clean things up a little bit more. So through that, choosing cause to be in total, or choosing awareness first, or having awareness first, then choosing to switch out of the story and go into full cause. Okay, well, I'm choosing this. So I'm going to choose something different. Then through that awareness and through that choice, then Jen was able to see the stories that were underneath that. Well, some of the stories. And through the rest of the work that we did at that training, Jen was able to peel back the layers and shift all of that at the unconscious level. And the unconscious mind is where we create permanent change. That's where we create.
It's the only place we can create permanent change.
Exactly. At a root cause level, which is really exciting. And we will do a whole episode on the unconscious mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that just came through for me then. Timeline therapy is it's like the Dyson for the mind, right?
Oh,
it's just,
yes.
it's the most extraordinary vacuum cleaner to clean up what isn't working for us in our unconscious mind.
Just like loving that.
Dyson. Get the Dyson out. There's a new. So you can probably tell by listening to this that this is something that you may even recognize some situations for yourself now where you have a story playing out that you believe something always happens, or it's always like this, or it never happens for me. Wherever you've got an always or a never, or a it's not fair, or, this is happening to me.
Or it's easier for somebody else.
Yeah. Whenever you've got something like that playing out, or blame, blame and doubt are another ways. When we blame someone else for what they did to me. I had a really great conversation with a client yesterday about somebody, in her words, somebody taking advantage of her. Now, that's full effect. Nobody can take advantage of us unless we give them permission to. So there's boundaries in there that we'll cover off as well. But there are many, many ways. And to her credit, because I just want to give her she's an extraordinary human being, she was aware, she was in effect. And we were able to have this level of empowered conversation around what it would look like for her to move out of effect and back into being at cause for how she did want this to be. So it's super powerful.
It is. And I just want to add something else in here. This isn't always easy. It's not pre-NLP. It's
and post NLP. Sometimes post NLP, it can take a moment. It can take a moment.
I just laugh. I'm like, oh, there I go. There's that story I've got going. Oh shit, there I am in effect. For me, it's become a little bit of a joke. And back when I first started studying, and before it was like this for me, I'd want to punch you in the face if you said this to me. This is my story. I'm holding this tight, and it's almost like a badge of honor. This is my identity. Who are you to tell me that I'm living in effect and that I'm this, that, and the other? And these episodes aren't going to always be comfortable, and we don't want them to be. There's too many people hurting in humanity Too many people that are living into stories and not living lives that they truly desire to live. Too many people hurting because they're blaming their parents for how they grew up, or they're blaming an ex-spouse for what happened in a relationship, or they're blaming the neighbor for something. And it's like, while we're in that space of blame for our circumstances and not taking full ownership for that, we're not truly living. We're not free on the inside. And, I really love human behavior. I love this body of work that Jen and I live and breathe and teach as well. And for me, I just want to see more people thriving. People say they want it. People say they want to be financial. They want to have financially free. They want to have great relationships. They want to do all these amazing things. Yet so many people are stuck in their story and identity. And we're here to kind of shake up people's models of the world and give a different insight into what's going on in the mind and how we can effectively shift and change and create what we truly want to create in this world.
Yeah. In fact, the only thing that is between what we want and what we have is inside the mind.
100%.
It's not outside the mind. It is inside the mind. And if we were to sort of close out this episode with some things that you can do now moving forward.
Before we do, I just wanted to add something in there from what you just said. What was that last thing that you just said?
Everything that anything that we want or desire, the only thing that is in the way of that is inside the mind.
Yes. And what I see a lot of people doing is looking external. It's like, I'm going to go and do this course on how to make 7 figures when I have never even made 6 figures, and expecting that that's going to work. Well, what about all the stories that are there underneath? Why do you think people go and do all these courses and programs and haven't got the results that they want? That's inside the mind.
It's inside the mind. The blocks are inside the mind. It's all inside the mind. And we could go down another little rabbit hole here. And I kind of feel like this is a really good solid basis for us all to begin on the same page, land here in the space of this podcast together, and really, have you, the listener, understand when we're talking about cause and effect in episodes to come. We will reference this episode in show notes and things. However, it's literally the foundation of living free, of living empowered, and of truly having anything that's in the way of you having your life the way you want gone.
Self-responsibility 101.
Self-responsibility 101. And in brackets, owning our shit. That's what self-responsibility is. Owning our shit. So what can you do now? Over the coming weeks or months, years, whatever, we would invite you just to start, how do you move from out of effect and into cause? Well, there's a couple of really simple steps to do this. The very first thing is to notice the trigger, notice the challenge, notice the discomfort, notice I feel stuck. The second that you can notice that, there's a pretty good chance that you're in effect or you're about to step into full effect. So notice that. And the second you can notice that, then there's a couple of questions, just like Allie asked me. How long do you want to keep the story about the thing that's just triggered you? Because there's a story there. How long do you want to keep that story? And the second question is, well, how, and this is perhaps the kicker for any introspection or self-inquiry. If you don't like how something is, the question to ask is, how do you want it to be instead? How do you want it to be instead? Because I can tell you that what's going to happen next is the limiting decision or the negative emotion or the story or identity that is in the way of you taking the action step, the very first action step to having it the way you want, will be the piece for you to begin to look at. Yeah, very cool. So that's us for episode 1 on the Inside the Mind podcast. So this is a 3-parter, probably really good to let you guys know. This is a 3-parter in that we want to lay the foundations for you for this entire podcast so that you have the themes to take with you into your life and into the podcast that we've got to come. So our next episode is another beauty.
Perception is projection.
Perception is projection. So if you kind of think about this episode as dealing with our complaints in life, the next episode is going to share some tools and some wisdom and some stories that's going to support you to be less judgy in life.
About self and others.
About self and others. So here's what we would really love you to do right now. If you've listened right through to the end and you're listening to what I'm about to say, the way we want to share this podcast out is through having people share it because they love it or they got something from it. So if it feels good to you and you did get even the smallest insight for yourself, please pop on and leave us a beautiful, positive review if it feels good to do that. Share it with a friend. Invite a friend to come and listen and take those couple of questions and take them out into your world over the coming days, weeks. Drop it if you have a win or you have a challenge, drop it in the chat in the Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group, have a look at the show notes and you will see how to do that. And come and let's open up a really inclusive, delicious conversation about what's really going on inside the mind.